There are many species of crab in Europe, but the brown crab is the most consumed. Other popular species are the spinous spider crab and the velvet swimming crab. All of these crabs are mostly found in European waters, such as the British Isles, Ireland, and northern France. Each year, the EU's brown crab catch exceeds 44 million pounds. They typically breed from November to January, but regulations prohibit the harvesting of buried females in order to ensure sustainability. Thus, the prime season for catching brown crabs is from May till October, when they are at their most abundant and yield the highest meat quality. These crabs can live up to 15 years and grow about 11 inches wide, weighing up to 5.5 pounds. Potting is the most common method used to catch brown crabs. In the UK, fishermen use parlour pots, which have a series of chambers that the crabs must navigate, making it harder for them to escape. They usually leave the pots with baits inside on the seabed overnight, before retrieving it the next day. This method is highly selective and minimises bycatch. In some parts of Ireland, a less common method of harvesting crabs is trawling. This is used in deeper waters where potting is less effective. At the fishing ground, fishermen will drag trawling nets along the seabed. This method can be effective, but often results in higher bycatch and can lead to damage of the seabed. A typical day for a brown crab fisherman begins well before sunrise. They prepare their boats, check equipment, and ensure sufficient bait is on board. Then they navigate towards a predetermined fishing ground, using technology like a GPS and live maps, instead of a compass and a paper map like in the old days. Here, each pot is hauled up aboard and sorted through meticulously. Each crab must have both of their claws cut, otherwise they will tear each other to pieces. Fishermen typically handle 300 to 500 pots each day. In 2023, total brown crab landings in the EU reached over 30 million pounds, with a value of approximately $40.4 million. To keep this going for years, each country in the EU sets different limits on the number of crabs that can be caught. This is to ensure that overfishing does not occur. The undersized crabs and females are returned to the sea, ensuring the future of the population. Although the United Kingdom exited the EU in 2021, it was still the largest EU fresh crab supplier, with exports reaching £20.6 million in 2023. This was mostly sent to Spain, China, France, and Portugal. This abundance is mainly because the country has favourable environments for crabs to thrive, with notable fishing grounds including the Irish Sea, North Sea, English Channel, and the Atlantic coast. Sorting complete, the fishermen continue to the next set of pots, repeating the process until all of the traps have been checked. Most of the crabbing boats are contracted with a seafood company. So once back at the harbour, the day's harvest is unloaded, weighed, and delivered to the seafood processing facility immediately. The most famous commercial crab product in the EU is the pasteurised canned crab meat. Shortly after being caught, the crabs are killed automatically on a conveyor belt. They are then cooked thoroughly by steaming or boiling. After that, they are cooled and shelled in order to extract the meat. It is then packed into cans and sealed with heat, ensuring a long shelf life. Finally, the cans are labelled and packaged with ice for distribution. While the brown crab is the most well known, there's another crab that also holds significant commercial value. Lurking on the seabed of the northeast Atlantic and the Mediterranean lies millions of European spinous spider crabs. This stingray has been chasing this group of spider crabs. It quickly and mercilessly extracts all the meat from the crab's shell. These crabs can grow quite large, with carapaces up to 7.8 inches wide and claws spanning over 19 inches for fully grown males. This European spider crab fishery is a significant economic contributor, particularly in countries like Spain, France, and the UK. After capturing European spinious spider crabs, fishermen are required to accurately report their catch online to fishery managers within 72 hours. The harvested crabs are swiftly transported to processing facilities. As the live crabs are placed on the conveyor belts, they are quickly and humanely killed by automated systems, handling up to 40 crabs per minute. Following the initial processing, the crabs are separated, with only the legs and other edible parts retained. Facilities that sell whole crabs will keep them as they are. The crabs are sorted and placed in containers with weight depending on orders. Each of these metal cages holds about 45 pounds. They are then cooked for 18 minutes at 210 degrees Fahrenheit, ensuring the meat is thoroughly cooked while maintaining its texture and taste. The crabs are cooled rapidly to halt the cooking process, dipped in salt water at low temperatures, and finally fresh water to extend their shelf life for up to 2 years. Although there is little demand for these crabs in the UK, most of the British catch is exported to continental Europe, where it's sold for about $24.99 per pound. The prized leg meat of the European spider crab comes at a high cost. A 2022 report from the Fish Safety Foundation estimated that around 100,000 people die annually while engaged in commercial fishing activities. In the UK, the non-fatal injury rate amongst fishery workers is the highest of any industry. Despite safety improvements, commercial crab fishing still remains one of the most hazardous jobs globally. Fishermen face stress, physical exhaustion, and unpredictable rough weather, increasing the risk of falls overboard and subsequent drowning. Even minor slips on deck can be catastrophic, especially if they are far from medical aid. While Europe grapples with the challenges of commercial fishing, Italy is facing a different threat from this super invasion. The blue crab, a beloved delicacy in Maryland, was accidentally introduced to Italy through ship ballast water in 2012. These robust and aggressive crustaceans have become a major headache for Italy's lucrative clam and mussel fisheries, with estimated losses exceeding $108 million. This clam farmer often finds several blue crabs in the nets that he surrounds his clam beds with to prevent other animals from interfering with their growth. Once the blue crab gets in, they eat everything that's trapped inside. This crab's population has exploded due to their incredible reproductive capacity producing between 500,000 to 2 million eggs annually. Efforts to control the population through mass capture have had little impact on their overall numbers, but there still might be a silver lining. Some reports suggest that the Italian blue crab is larger than its American counterpart, leading some Italians to view them as potential culinary resources, inspired by Maryland's crab dishes. The crabs have begun appearing in seafood markets and supermarkets, priced at around $8.70 to $10.80 per kilo. Although new to the market, Italy now boasts nearly 50 blue crab processing plants, offering much needed income for local fishermen. The last crabs we will introduce to you are the most consumed in Europe, and they are the velvet swimming crab, often called the devil crab. In regions like the Irish Sea, where brown crab populations are lower, velvet swimming crabs are directly targeted. But they are primarily caught as bycatch in pot fisheries targeting brown crab, lobster, and whelk. The minimum catch sizes for these crabs vary slightly across the regions, but typically fall about 2.5 inches of carapace width, ensuring that juveniles are left out of catching plans. The velvet crab's value lies in its delicate sweet meat. However, this very characteristic makes them challenging to process. Unlike their hardier brown crab relatives, velvet crab meat is susceptible to spoilage when under rough handling and stress. That is why live transport is often preferred. Thousands of velvet crabs are stored in ice or snow at the port, then exported live to lorries to the buoyant seafood markets in France and Spain. A struggle of fishermen in America's remote seas. What they confront are giant fish hidden on the ocean floor. Are you ready to experience the thrill of offshore fishing? Right now, we follow American fishermen to see how they harvest and process giant grouper fish. In the Gulf of Mexico, giant groupers can be found in a variety of environments, from shallow rocky outcrops to deep water wrecks and artificial reefs. Groupers hide in these structures. They are hiding, waiting to ambush their prey. Groupers are opportunistic feeders and will eat anything including bait fish, crustaceans and squid. When unsuspecting prey passes by, they will be swallowed whole. Fishing will give fishermen a chance to pull these violent guys out of their lair. The thrill of catching a giant grouper and the challenge of fighting it make this type of fishing a popular activity. All you need is a fishing rod, a very long reel of fishing line, a weighted hook, as well as bait to attract them. Of course, fishing in deep water also requires larger fishing vessels. Lures will vary depending on the season, water conditions, and individual anglers' preferences, but popular choices are usually live bait, including fish and squid. With the advent of modern navigation devices, fishermen can soon identify these gathering locations easily in the waters off the Gulf. Typically, fishermen will anchor their boats to take advantage of good locations, or drift with the current to cover larger areas. One of the simplest and most effective ways to catch giant grouper is bottom fishing. This technique involves using weights to sink the bait to the ocean floor where giant groupers swim. To catch fish on the bottom, you will need a braided line and a suitable bottom fishing rig. The key is to make sure your bait stays in the strike zone for as long as possible. This is something that requires patience, not knowing exactly when the fish will bite. Therefore, fishermen must keep the fishing line tight. At the same time, you must mentally prepare for a tough battle when the giant grouper takes the bait. In the fall months, fishermen set out in their boats to reach the wreckage, little-known waters, about 34 miles away in the Gulf of Mexico. Their waiting was rewarded. To preserve the ecology of federal waters, fishermen may only catch grouper at least 24 inches, and the daily limit is 2 fish per angler. To increase your chances of a successful giant grouper fishing trip, it is essential to grasp the best times to fish for this fish. Although some species of giant grouper can be caught all year round, but certain seasons of the year create more favorable conditions for a productive fishing trip. The giant grouper fishing season along this coast typically runs from April to November. During this time, water temperatures are warmer and giant groupers are actively feeding. However, spring and fall are great months for fishermen to easily target larger-sized grouper species. Have you ever felt helpless when finding a fish? Like there's absolutely nothing you can do to win the battle. If you're not careful, you could be pulled out of the boat and fall into the water. That's exactly the feeling you get when you hook a 450-pound Goliath grouper. The Goliath grouper is the largest grouper in the Western Atlantic, measuring 8.2 feet and weighing up to 800 pounds. Goliath groupers love to drown anything they can fit in their mouths. Whether it's jacks, snapper or snook, they don't care. Their aggressive personalities make them easy to hook, but pulling them out of their nests safely is an entirely different matter. This is something that requires not only strength, but also experience. Even so, fishermen can still catch Goliath grouper with 90 pounds of drag. These giant monsters don't have much stamina, and battles are usually quite brief. These powerful fish are huge stars in Florida waters. They like to live around rocky bottoms to the deepest places. Black grouper are quite intelligent and require more time and effort to catch. Black groupers are extremely strong. They will grab the bait and run away without giving the fisherman a chance to react. Just like their black cousins, red groupers live around rocky bottoms in waters up to 1,000 feet deep. So fishermen will have to go out to sea to find them. Red groupers are incredible fighters, and once hooked, they rarely miss an opportunity to show off their prowess. Using a variety of live bait will attract larger fish from their hiding places. The fisherman spins the reel quickly when the grouper takes the bait, allowing the hook to hook firmly into the grouper's mouth. They are very careful because yanking the hook will tear the grouper's mouth. Besides natural hunting, grouper farming on farms is also quite popular. Grouper farms can be built in many different models. Some are raised in floating cages or submerged cages. In addition, it can also be built into a large tank so the grouper can move freely. Inside this factory, large tanks are built with aeration systems to provide oxygen. Using the most modern equipment, fish farmers create the best living environment with suitable temperatures for grouper fish. This farming method has not been developed in many places, but is also a new step in the seafood industry. The natural ecosystem is not affected, and groupers do not face potential dangers in the wild. Food for grouper is mainly trash fish, such as anchovies and herring. But first, the food must be fresh, with impurities removed by soaking in fresh water before feeding to avoid causing disease in the entire fish tank. Farmers often preserve trash fish by freezing it, then grinding it and pressing it into pellets like dry food for the fish to eat twice a day, morning and afternoon. When feeding groupers, farmers spread food slowly so that the groupers can easily eat the bait. The amount of food provided will depend on the weight of the grouper. After 9 to 10 months of farming, depending on the type of grouper, farmers will harvest. When harvesting, you need to lift the net slowly to bring the grouper to an angle. Farmers use soft nets to avoid scratching scales or injuring fish when harvesting, because injured grouper are less valuable. After harvesting, the grouper will be sent to local markets or processing factories. Here people put it in an aeration tank for preservation. Farmers need to make sure the fish is alive until they are processed. Suitable grouper fish are carefully selected and cleaned before being scaled. This is also an important step, helping to remove impurities and improve flavor. Next, the grouper fish will have their bones and skin removed, leaving only the meat and then cleaned. Although not as heavy and large as seed-dwelling groupers, farm-raised groupers have a similar flavor. Fish meat will be cut into pieces and stored at high temperature. From a nutritional perspective, grouper meat contains many essential nutrients such as protein, calcium, and vitamins. Besides, when processed into a dish, grouper is also extremely delicious, bringing a good experience to diners. Therefore, this is a popular fish in local restaurants. Grouper meat can be processed into many different products, such as fresh, frozen meat, or prepared dishes such as steamed or grilled grouper. Frozen grouper products are also popular with consumers because of their convenience and long-term preservation. With patience and dedication, sea grouper fishermen battle big waves every day. Meanwhile, farmers raise grouper fish on farms using technology to ensure product quality. Although operating in two different environments, farmers and fishermen have a common goal. That is to provide the market with quality grouper fish and protect the natural ecosystem.